Actually, if you look at the Constitution of the United States says nothing about separation of church and state.
Absolutely not.
The First Amendment, which they always cite, the Establishment Clause, actually says Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. When you think it through, the real implication of that phrase also, though, is not to prohibit religious establishment. Some people argue that. No. What it says is Congress shall make no law respecting, not prohibiting, but respecting an establishment of religion. What does that mean? Well, respecting means concerning, on the subject of, with regard to, dealing with. So it means Congress shall make no law that has anything whatsoever to do with religious establishment. Well, my friends, if it can't address the issue at all, that means it can't say yes to religious establishment, and it also can't say no. It can't interfere with anything that's done on this subject. So you'll ask me, okay, Alan, who can address it? Well, the Constitution's also clear about this. In the 10th Amendment, it says that any power that's not given to the United States government by the Constitution or explicitly prohibited by the U.S. Constitution to the states is reserved to the states respectively and to the people. That means that the power that was explicitly withheld from the federal government, the power to deal with the issue of religious establishment. And remember, that means all these issues that have to do with the relation between church and state, how you acknowledge God, whether you acknowledge God, what can be done, prayer in schools, display of monuments, all the whole range of issues that have to do with that subject, right? The federal government has no lawful authority to address those issues at all whatsoever. The 14th Amendment requires of state officials, which is that they do not act to infringe the rights, privileges, and immunities of citizens of the United States. Well, one of those privileges and immunities was the right to be free of dictation by the federal government when it comes to matters of religious conscience at the state level. That's the business of the state governments and the people of the states. It is not at all the business of the federal government. And when the federal judges get involved in it, do you know what they're doing? They are acting unconstitutionally and unlawfully. They are violating the supreme law of the land, and it is they who are doing something wrong, not Chief Justice Moore. He was actually doing what the law of this land requires him to do, defend and stand on the right of his state and his people to deal with the issue of church and state and how you acknowledge God, to deal with that issue free of federal domination. That means that we don't just have to sit there and let these judges take power they don't have under the Constitution. If they've stepped over the boundaries of their actual power as defined in the Constitution, our representatives in Congress can push them back where they belong. With a simple majority vote in the Congress, they can remove from the jurisdiction of the federal courts all those matters that have to do with these issues of church and state, and which, by the power of the First Amendment, the federal government has been forbidden to address. And what we need to do is we need to rise up and demand that our representatives take this step. Demand that they defend the right of the states and the people of the states to make these decisions free from federal interference by imposing this restriction on the federal courts. And by the way, if you impose that restriction, you're not taking anything from them. Because to say that you're taking away their jurisdiction, no, that's not what's being done. They never had that jurisdiction in the first place. What you're doing is you're putting them back where they belong. It's like you have found a stolen good in a thief's house and you're returning it to the proper owner. The stolen good in this case is the right to acknowledge God and to make a decision according to our conscience through our state institutions and at the state and local level of how and in what way we will acknowledge the authority of God. That's our religious right. That is our real religious freedom. That is our real freedom of conscience in this country, and they have stolen it from us, and we must demand that the Congress use its proper constitutional authority to get it back.
If you appreciate this, I do, with all my heart.